What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer and Mike Goolsby here. We were not able to go live on Sunday for the Mike Goolsby Show, but we are here with a pre-recorded segment to break down Notre Dame's 32-29 over Virginia Tech with the former Fighting Irish linebacker and captain. So we have a ton to talk about. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content, and of course go to blueandgold.com for everything Notre Dame athletics. But ton to break down on the offensive side of the ball, Mike, but we're going to start on defense. After a few strong games on that side of the ball, came down to earth with 29 points that they gave up. What did you see? Like, was it a good performance? Was it not so good? Like, what did you think? Because clearly the defensive output was good enough for Notre Dame to win.
It's the defense it's hard to figure out. Maybe that's by design. It's so multiple. Coach Freeman is insistent on leaving Foskey in the box. Sometimes we're bringing linebackers on blitzes from like 10 yards. So we've got a rover walked out or 10 yards depth hitting it. So it's still a little confusing to me. I think after the first couple games, I use the word cute to describe the defense in terms of sub packages, etc. Like versus just lining up, putting four hands in the ground and playing football and rushing the passer. So that's still a little frustrating to watch. I don't understand like putting three hands in the dirt and then rushing a fourth linebacker right into the lap of an offensive guard. It just doesn't make sense in principle to me. In terms of this week and their overall approach, it seemed like they played a little bit softer in coverage, almost forcing Burmeister to throw into coverage. When you're playing an athletic quarterback, and we'll get into this and talking about Buchner, but it's like there's big boom or bust potential. Apparently, Burmeister, the Virginia Tech quarterback, is the fastest kid in the team. We learned that during broadcast. So he's a 4.3, 4.4 guy, one can assume. So, like, if you bring pressure and you want to play man, you're leaving yourself, like, super vulnerable to a quarterback scramble or just a scramble drill in general because all of our DBs have got their backs turned to the ball in man coverage. So, big boom or bust potential. It seemed like as the game sort of went on that we just were playing almost a dime formation, lots of DBs in the field, and really forcing him to throw into coverage and trying to define whatever that coverage is and complete a pass versus him just playing backyard football, which is what really kind of plays to Burmeister's strength. Our front four played well again, had a couple injuries up there. It was nice to see Tariq Bracy make a play. I don't know who, like, Kyle Hamilton, again, is one of those guys that we're just blessed to have a chance to watch play. I don't even know, like, I mean, Houston Griffith plays opposite him at safety, but it's like, who's back there? It seems like as far as DBs, you've got Hamilton and you've got Cam Hart. I still think is going to be a great player for us. He had a kind of a boneheaded play. I mean, it was like that Saints-Vikings game a few years ago. I think it was Tracy Porter missed that tackle against Stephon Diggs. But it's nice to see Bracy step up and make a play. The defense in general, like I said, was kind of took a soft approach, sort of a bend, don't break mentality. And it made sense to me on paper based off the type of athlete they're playing at quarterback. But again, schematically with Freeman's overall schemes, and all these different personnel packages, it doesn't make sense. So hopefully maybe after the bye week, Mike, we kind of clean some of that up and maybe just throw out a couple of these different looks and just these are our 4 or 5 almost fronts, and we're just going to roll with these through the rest of it's almost the experimentation period's over, you know?
Sure. Moving over to the
Hopefully.
offensive side of the ball, Mr. Goolsby. Quarterbacks. I mean, I felt like after the Cincinnati game was like, all right, Drew Pine looks to be the starter, even with what Coach Kelly had said, that they know who they're going to name the starter, or they knew who the starter is going to be. They didn't want to name it. It kind of felt like, all right, well, if it was Coan, you would just say it's Coan. Maybe a little gamesmanship there, but Coan was the starter. then he gets removed in favor of Buchner, who played the majority of the quarterback snaps. Just for him to kind of get dinged up. Was he healthy enough to play the rest of the game? I don't know. But Coan goes in, leaves a couple touchdown drives, and the Irish to victory. So I'm really interested to kind of get your thoughts on the whole quarterback experiment, how it shook out on Saturday. What's next? What do you think is going on in that quarterback room and locker room? I'll give you the floor, Mr. Goolsby.
This is, I hate to waffle, right, Mike? I hate to waffle, sort of him and haw. Getting off the show last week, I kind of said throw that Buckner package out, which it seems like we've done in terms of if we're going to put Buckner in, he's going to run maybe run the offense, but run the offense as best suited to Tyler, which is what we initially said. Like, if you're going to play that kid, let him play the offense, right? So it's great to see them throw the package out. And it's like, if we don't know, Mike, you and I don't know, and any Notre Dame fan or any Notre Dame talking head or pundit that's out there, nobody knows what's going on. And it's like, I don't even know if the coaches do. And I'm watching the game, Mike, watching the broadcast, and prior to kickoff, Drew Pine standing right next to Coach Kelly, almost as he's like leading the team out of the tunnel, which is kind of like a leadership type thing to do. It's a little corny, some might say, but I'm like, okay, based off of that, Pine's going to be our starter, and then he never touches the field. I believe, and this is me just trying to pull theories, right? I believe that maybe Kelly played Coan to start the game just because of the environment that we walked into, their night game at Blacksburg. So you're going to go with experience, and maybe that's why Coan started the game. Couple penalties, couple sacks. We roll Buchner in, and he looks great. So you asked me, and sort of priming this question, what's next? I think we found our quarterback in Tyler Buchner. Looking at the situation holistically, Coan's done after this year, whereas Pine isn't. If I'm Coach Kelly, it's almost like you would go back and forth between Pine and Buchner, because you don't want Pine to transfer out if he doesn't play this year. And then what do we have next year? We have Buchner and then more guys with ostensibly zero in inexperience. So it's almost like you have to keep Pine happy so as not to potentially lose him in the transfer portal. But Buckner's your quarterback. You saw the offensive line look better today, and I'm going to give all the credit in the world to Alt. I mean, if there's like a mid-season MVP vote, Mike, Alt might be your MVP. Like, you really have to break it down. The running game looked tremendous, and I think Tyler Buchner playing quarterback helps your offensive line, and it obviously helps your running game based off that RPO, quarterback read type thing. Why does it help the offensive line, Mike? With Coan, love him, but he's a statue. He's literally a statue. He takes that snap, takes one step, he doesn't move off the spot. So we've seen defensive coordinators will bring more pressure when Coan's in the game. When Buckner's in the game, it's similar to what I talked about, at least it seems at surface level, watching the game a couple times. When Buckner's in the game, it seems like opposing defensive coordinators are playing more coverage, similar to what we did against Virginia Tech's quarterback. They're going to try and force Tyler to make throws, and they're also scared of his legs. If we miss on a blitz, that could be a 20, 30-yard, who knows, touchdown run. So Kyron had his best game, and I think a lot of that's based off of Buchner being out or being in their game. I think the receivers looked the most polished and looked the most engaged that I've seen all season, frankly. And I think that might have had to do something with Buchner. But I also think, Mike, texting you, the receivers stepping up their game and elevating their play, I think a lot of that had to do with Michael Mayer being out of the game.
Okay.
In that, if you look at every game up to this point, I mean, there's 7 to 9 more catches and 10 to 14 more targets that are up for grabs.
Sure.
And I think you saw more effort from the receivers. I think there's something legitimately to that. But Tyler should be your quarterback. I think he's got, based off of what I've seen, and I'm not at practice, I think he has the strongest arm. I think he has an equally quick release to Drew Pine. Um, super, I mean, he's fast. He's legitimately
He
fast.
is.
My one concern with Buchner, and sorry, I'm just spewing here, but we've seen it in the past with Kelly's small-ish quarterbacks. I think it was, again, this is where we miss Lou, but I think it was Malik Zaire got kind of nicked up at a point in time. He's had 2 or 3 different quarterbacks that haven't had like major injuries from carrying the ball so often, but they'll just get like a little nick or a little ankle tweak here or there. Tyler got hurt, a non-contact thing, kind of rolled his ankle, but I would almost prefer to see Buchner when he's going to run the ball, maybe a few less design runs, and it's just kind of a spontaneous pull it down and run type thing. But kid's got the arm, got a little bit inaccurate. Tyler, at this point, to me, is still hearing footsteps from the pass rush. He's getting rid of the ball maybe a half a count too early, and that'll improve as he watches the film. I think he's better off throwing vertical passes versus running little stop routes because he's got that adrenaline going, and sometimes he's going to sail those balls early. He threw a beautiful deep ball to Kevin Austin for completion. He threw another kind of a fade ball to Austin late in the second quarter, which was literally a perfect pass. Go back and watch the game, and I think that Austin should have went up and really fought for that ball. I mean, that's an NFL type throw. But I was rewatching the game again last night, Mike. I was fired up watching Buchner.
Okay.
And I could tell you, folks, when he makes mistakes, Mike, he knows he made a mistake. Like there was a play where they run RPO, the Takis, who I was a little bit disappointed in. This is your time to shine. Meyer's out of the game, and just kind of a meh performance for Takis. But he runs RPO, Takis leaks to the flat, and he should have thrown the ball to Takis. And Tyler got like a 3 yard game, and immediately he looks up and he was talking to Takis like, "My bad, I got you." Like he knew immediately that he should have went there with the ball, which is encouraging. You know, he knows what he should be doing. It's just the synapses haven't been created yet. But ton of upside. I'm stoked about him.
All right, Mike, that was quite the ramble. So I have
Sorry,
three.
sorry.
It's all right. I got three follow-up things for you. You said,
Sure.
quote, love Coan. So I'm curious, are you higher on Coan after seeing what he did in the end of the game? Kevin Austin, 3 receptions for 70 yards on 4 targets. He looked darn good in some key moments. And then third question, if you can remember all of these, is, I mean, like, you got to be fair on Buchner. I mean, like, for all the good things he did, he threw 2 bad picks. 6 of 14, 113 yards, 43% completion percentage. You know, I'm not trying to dog on him because he's a true freshman playing on the road in a big spot. Like, the kid's stock is definitely up, but I don't know about starting quarterback right now. So take those in order: Coan, Austin, and Buchner. What's your thoughts on my 3 comments?
Cone is this like we talked about this earlier in the season, Mike. The floor is higher, but the ceiling is lower with Cone. So he is what he is. It's just and that's it. It's almost like when he went back in the game, it's almost like Virginia Tech didn't switch up their defense and they played Cone almost like they would have played Buchner in terms of they didn't bring any pressure per se, and they just kind of played zone, and Jack had time to pick it apart. Um, I still don't think you can start Buchner. I don't think you do or can, but I do think he's the quarterback of the future.
Okay. Okay, I thought you I
I'm
thought you kind
sick
of
of
meant to
yeah.
start him. So you're saying two QB
No,
system?
no. I mean, Mike, what he's doing, yes, two QB system, whether that be Pine and Buchner or whether that be Jack and Buchner. What Tyler's doing, folks, it's I mean, I would put it on par with what Joe Alt is doing. It's remarkable. Like it's This is a kid that didn't play his senior year. He's only played, what, a year or two of high school football. And all the data that he's having to soak in and to go out there and execute, it's remarkable. And categorically, I put him in the same place. So it's almost like I'm tired of like going into a game. It's a turd for the first. Like, I mean, if you go back and look at, like, pull up the ESPN app, look at our first quarter statistics, dreadful. We had 27 yards of total offense. It was dreadful. And then every game we need a spark. So why do we need a spark? Whether that's put Coan in and try and get some chunk plays. Maybe it's the offensive approach with Coan in the game. But if you're going to put Buchner in, let him run the offense. But Buchner, it's pretty apparent, is the future. With Austin, again, there was a throw down the right sideline in the I think it was the late second quarter. Literally a perfectly placed ball by Tyler, and Austin's got to go make that play. Um, the ability's there. He had a lot more bounce today. To me, he just almost looked like a different player today. And I think either that had something to do with the excitement surrounding Buckner, that maybe this kid can get me the ball. Maybe it was, yeah, again, there's more targets up for grabs because Mayer's sitting. I don't know, but Austin, to me, looked the best. I mean, the numbers are similar to what he did against Wisconsin in terms of overall productivity. I think he had one less catch yesterday, but I'm just saying in terms of his body language he looked like he had a lot of bounce. So that was super encouraging. And then, yeah, Buchner didn't play the cleanest game. He started out great. He had two incompletions. One was kind of a drop, and then the second one was kind of a drop. Again, these are contested catches, but maybe just slightly behind the receiver, but it's a catchable ball. If it hits your hands, in my world, you should catch it. And then, the pick to Deion Colsey was a bad play, bad route, kind of a lazy route by Colsey. And again, another true freshman. Remarkable how many freshmen were playing, Mike. He had an open tight end on that play, but the biggest thing to me on that pick six that he gave up on that attempt to Colsey was he was hearing footsteps. He was like 1, 2, 3, got rid of the ball. He could have patted it. He could have waited another second, half a second to let that ball go, and that'll come with time. But I'm just telling you, you see the potential there. The defense has been playing great. The defense has been turning the ball over. So, like I said, if Buchner throws a pick and we get a pick, it's a wash. So, Coan, you know what you have. I'm always going to go with upside,
Okay.
personally. I'm always going to go with upside.
How about Notre Dame throwing 2 pick sixes this year and winning both games? Like, that's kind of
Crazy.
crazy. Typically, like a block punt or a pick six, really swings
Devastating.
momentum. But you definitely seem, you know, um, to be giving Buckner less of a hard time than Cohn for the pick six. But I get your inexperience
Well,
point.
how many years of I mean, you get it, Mike. How many
I,
years
I
of college
understand.
football has Coan have under his belt?
I mean,
Right?
pick six, pick six. I mean, but I understand. Let's move to
It
the
just,
Mike, let's move to the
yeah.
offensive line. You mentioned Joe Alt. I don't think he's the MVP of the team, but I love the kid, so I'm not gonna fight you on it. Um, that unit certainly looked good. Go back to some of the rushing stats: 4.5 yards per carry, sack adjusted rushing yards. That's the best of the season. Kyron Williams, 19 carries, 74 yards and a touchdown. Buckner, 12 carries, 76 or 67 yards and a touchdown. I believe Cohn was sacked twice in the game, and that was it for sacks. I mean, seemed like Alt is the guy at left tackle for the foreseeable future, and Kristofic looked like a good guy at left guard. Seemed like Cade
Yeah.
Madden played a little bit better. What do you think, Mike?
I think, yeah, I don't know if you can give an offensive MVP award to an offensive lineman, but I mean, just think about where we were, dude, 2 weeks ago. I mean, it was bad, bad, right? 3 weeks ago, bad, bad. Yes, Cohn was sacked twice. I think it was the second sack. Alt got hit with an inside spin. Not much he could do on that. This his second sack. he sacked himself in terms of the way he sort of navigated or stepped up into the pocket. But this is the beauty of football, Michael. It's like the yin and the yang of things. Whereas Tyler comes in, he's slowing down linebacker pursuit over the top, which helps open up run game, like the run games. Um, Tyler's back there at quarterback, which just very generically, he's a better athlete. So it's like if you're a defensive end playing against Jack Coan, you just tee off. You're
Right.
on a railroad track. You're going 6.5 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's where I'm going. With Tyler, he's got that wild card kind of element to him
You got to
where
worry about
ends are
contain a lot more.
much more focused on contain, which slows down the rush. And then again, it seemed like they were just, we're going to flood the passing lanes. We're going to make this kid pick us apart versus trying to bring pressure. So less negative plays. Granted, you threw a couple picks and one was a pick six, but it's like less drive staller, negative play, offensive linemen getting nervous and jumpy type environment. So I just think all of those things holistically kind of blend into one another. And I'm going to give Tyler credit for that. Just his presence and the ability back there. It nullifies the pressure from the defense. It opens up the running game, and then we can, like, I don't know, Mike. When I was watching the game, it really felt like maybe the first time all season that we actually had some semblance of like an offense.
Yeah,
Like there was some flow.
sure.
Like I was like, oh, we're running the ball. Kyron had a great game. Kyron's a freaking
He
fantastic
is
player,
amazing.
dude.
We don't talk about him enough for
And
sure. Yeah.
no, we Notre Dame fans are funny that way, right? Because like we take Kyle Hamilton completely for granted. Take him completely for granted. Kyron Williams, we probably take him for granted. I mean, and then the other thing that we it's not on our schedule to talk about, but this is a fun team in that there's so many young kids playing. And again, this is a part of Notre Dame fandom where somebody's not maybe playing up to par, and they were like, oh, we need to bring, play this freshman wide receiver, play this freshman, this, Mike, you see it on the message boards. Folks, this is your chance. Like you're seeing all these young kids roll through, and we're still winning games. So it's a really fun team to watch. Negative plays like pick sixes, we still come back and win. And this young group is figuring out like how to win games and what it takes to, kind of how to be a part of that
Mike,
culture.
let me interrupt you real
Yeah, go
quick, and
ahead.
then I want you to
Sure.
continue that point. I mean, there was a point where, Chris Tyree comes out. So you got Tyler Buchner and Logan Diggs in the
Crazy.
backfield. I'm just thinking to myself, if you would have told me this is the scenario, Notre Dame's trailing at Virginia Tech and that's your backfield, I would have been like, you're crazy, but here we are. So you got Buchner, Diggs, Lorenzo Styles, Deion Colsey, right? That's 4. Barong played some tight end.
Big
Mitchell
Mitch.
Evans, 6. Joe Wall, 7. Am I missing anyone on offense? A true freshman? Of course, if you want to throw in Blake Fisher, he was going to be a big part of this
Yeah.
offense. We was the starter. So that's 8 true freshmen just on offense,
Yeah.
making an impact on this team, playing football. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I don't know if there's anyone.
Collie had a big hit on a kickoff.
Okay, so Colley's playing special teams. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
so you would assume probably coming out of that bye. I look at defensively, just I wanted to sprinkle this in there. Uh, Bo Bauer is such a better blitzer than Drew White, but I just think, where there's been talk about getting some people rest, like, I mean, even Hamilton came off the field a couple times this past week, but I would project or imagine, or gosh, fingers crossed, hopeful thinking or hopeful that Kali's going to sub in for one of these linebackers and just random packages and just let him blitz and see what happens.
Mike,
Super physical player. Yeah.
I know so many Notre Dame fans, and you're mentioning, on the message boards that they're always calling for a true freshman. If fans are going to call for a true freshman to play, I feel like the angst should be over Cauley. Like, get Cauley in there in some packages rather than Rocco Spindler. Like, I love Spindler, but that's the biggest thing is why isn't Spindler playing? I'm like, really? If Spindler, if the staff felt like Spindler could play, they'll play anybody that can play offensive line right now. They just don't feel like he's ready.
Clearly.
So I would say, let's see what Cauley can do. Even though the linebacker group's been good, but Cauley just brings something different Whereas Spindler, he took some first team reps in the spring, so everyone's like, man, this kid is farther along than we thought. Why isn't he playing now? But John Dirksen, Dylan Gibbons, who's not even on the team anymore, they took first team reps in the spring, and no one's upset about that. Like, yeah, John Dirksen, I think, is a senior. Everyone's hung up on the freshman, but I digress. Go ahead and continue, Mike.
Well, I think I've touched on this before. I like Rocco. I didn't think he was as dominant based off of his high school film as his recruiting hype would lead you to believe. And Rocco, really got into the recruiting process, and he was a salesman for the program. And there's just a lot of hype around Rocco. So I think that's why most Notre Dame fans are clamoring to see him play. And obviously, you combine that with the poor play of the offensive line, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Collie, super rural Tennessee, not a ton of recruiting hype. I mean, eventually got his fourth star.
Spindler had a lot of recruiting hype, but Colley's was like Spindler's was over a long span of time. Colley's was hot and heavy for a short period of time. I would say at the end of it, equal hype, in my opinion. Both Under Armour All-Americans. Of course, that game was canceled. Both big-time offer lists.
But I'm saying the average Notre Dame fan might have heard Rocco Spindler's name, just following Notre Dame football more so than they would have Prince Colley. Like Jalen Sneed is a freakazoid. Like he's a very, very special player, and he might not be the most hyped or most publicized recruit in the upcoming class. So, but Collie, I watched his high school film pretty intently. Actually lives where my folks live now, kind of in that northeast Tennessee area. He's from that area, but didn't really have a position in high school. He was just kind of playing like middle center field line. He was playing linebacker from like 10 yards depth. It was just kind of a see ball, get ball.
Sounds like perfect for this defense, right?
Yeah. And if I was coaching high school football in rural Tennessee, I might do something similar. But for Prince, and it's no fault of his own, there's going to be more catching up to do in terms of the X's and O's. But that's where I'm saying it's like, if I'm Coach Freeman, you might call a signal and just be like, I might tag it and be like, Prince. So if you hear that in the huddle, Prince, like, you're gone.
But Mike, you were saying earlier in the show that they'll have a linebacker 10 yards off the ball and he's blitzing. Like, I feel like Collie could do something similar to that.
Well, from a will position, though, not from a rover. So, like, I've seen Kaiser where he's 10 yards off the ball, and by the time the quarterback lets go of it, he's just gotten to the line of scrimmage. It doesn't make any sense. So I said from the get-go that Collie was going to be a will. It seems like that's going to bear itself out to be true. Most folks thought he was a rover, and Sneed is your rover, Collie's your will. But I imagine we'll see him playing into the future. But it's, again, going back to my initial thought, Mike, it's a super exciting time. We're winning games. We're beating quality teams with just a freshman sprinkled throughout. We might have found a really special quarterback. And you've got a bye week to try and put this all together.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the Mike Goolsby Show. We will be back live on October 24th, the day after the Notre Dame USC game. Make sure you hit that thumbs up before you get out of here. Mr. Goolsby, appreciate you joining me, and we will catch you guys next time.